Before I ever took a pregnancy test, I just knew that I had to be pregnant. There was something inside me that just felt different, like something had shifted, even though there was no obvious change that had happened yet. Today, I'm going to be sharing the signs and symptoms that I experienced before I ever saw the 2 pink lines and how my intuition told me that I was pregnant before a test ever could. Everybody has a different experience when it comes to pregnancy, so I hope that this gives you some insight if you're curious or on the 2-week wait. So this is actually my 3rd pregnancy, but my 2nd baby, and I've kind of just learned after being pregnant so many times that your body seems to quietly tell you you're pregnant before you ever even take a test. It's funny to think about all the times that I had convinced myself that I was pregnant, maybe because my period was like a day or 2 late. I would run to the store, grab a test, come home and take it, and of course it was always negative. And now, having experienced pregnancy, I now actually know when I'm really pregnant versus just having a late period, maybe because of stress or some other things. Because real pregnancy for me has always just kind of come with this unexplainable shift. It's kind of hard to describe if you've never felt it, but it's almost just like this quiet nudge that something different is going on inside of your body. And I typically describe this feeling as feeling off, but I don't necessarily mean like a bad version of off. It's more so like a peaceful, subtle awareness that there's been some kind of change that has happened in your body. When I noticed that I was feeling this way again back in December of 2024, I knew that I had to be pregnant. However, that was our first month of also trying for another baby, so there was part of me that felt like I was almost like gaslighting myself or trying to think that I was pregnant, because there was no way that could happen so soon. But of course, that gut feeling wasn't the only clue that I had that I probably was pregnant. Once I tuned into my body, I started noticing that there were other symptoms that were going on. The first symptom that I noticed was fatigue. Every time that I've been pregnant, I have dealt with extreme fatigue right off the bat. I'm talking like next level exhaustion. Like no matter how much sleep I would get at night, it was never enough. And about 2 p.m. every day, I was always crashing on the couch and taking a nap. This is like my biggest physical symptom that I notice that tells me I have to be pregnant. I'm normally somebody that has a lot of energy and I'm typically pretty motivated, and outside of pregnancy, I rarely take a nap. I also was dealing with some mild bloating. I was taking something called Kiala Greens because I heard about it on TikTok, and I was taking it for several months and truly loved my experience. It helped so much with my bloating that I dealt with from my IUD and PCOS. But because we were trying for baby number 2, I decided to stop taking it, and so I kind of attributed that bloating to not taking the Kiala Greens. But I also felt so much more bloated than I used to, and it really didn't matter what I was eating or drinking. I just constantly felt so uncomfortable and bloated. And that was kind of one of those symptoms that made me start putting 2 and 2 together. Then I jumped straight into having a huge appetite. I was hungry all the time. I was eating really full meals, sometimes getting like seconds and thirds, but yet like an hour or so after dinner, I was like, I need a sweet treat. I need to have another snack. I was just hungry all the time. And this is one of the biggest symptoms that I had when I was pregnant with my son. And so I just really was like, okay, this is bizarre. I love food, but I normally don't love food this much. And McDonald's was calling my name a lot more times than I would like to admit. And looking back on it, I really do think I was more emotional than I thought that I was. It was December, so of course we're in Christmas time, and my son was 1.5, so this was like the first Christmas that he could like really get involved in things and look at the lights and open gifts and all that kind of stuff. So I did feel really emotional about that, but I feel like the pregnancy really made me feel more emotional than I normally would, because I'm not like a super emotional, like sentimental person like that. And of course, the last symptom that I dealt with was just feeling pregnant. There were a lot of other pregnancy symptoms that I dealt with, but those all came after I had already found out I was pregnant and when I was later into my first trimester. But that's a topic for another video that I have coming out in just a couple of weeks. So with all those symptoms said, I started feeling off about 9 days post-ovulation. Now, because this was our first month trying for a baby, I really wasn't at the point of wanting to get like ovulation tests and doing all that. So I was just using my regular period tracking app, and it estimated when my ovulation date was. And it seems like that was probably around December 10th. So once that off feeling settled in around 9 days post ovulation, part of me thought, am I just like being too hyper aware? Am I gaslighting myself? Am I just like really hoping that I'm pregnant and making myself feel this way? But there was just almost like this inner voice that kept coming back, and I could not shake it. I wasn't sure if I was dealing with PMS or something more, since this would only be my 2nd period after getting my IUD out. And I almost didn't want to test because I was scared of being wrong and not really understanding my body anymore. And even worse, I was truly terrified of having another miscarriage. That fear lingered so badly in the back of my mind, but I finally got the courage to go and buy a test and take it on December 22nd. When I finally gave in and bought the test, I was actually out Christmas shopping for my family. That morning, I really felt all of the pregnancy symptoms, and I just knew, like, without a shadow of a doubt that I had to be pregnant. So really getting the test was just for me to take it and have that confirmation. I got that first response test, you know, the one that's like tells you 6 days before your missed period, because I was only about like 3 to 4 days out from my period at this point. So I came home and I took the test and it was positive. Now it was a little bit like on the fainter side, but it was definitely like a positive. Didn't have to hold it up weirdly in the light or anything like that. But also I was a bit skeptical of the first response test because it's one of the ones that I used when I had a potential chemical pregnancy back in February of 2024. So I also decided to use the PregMate test. I bought like a big bag of them back in November, and when I did that one showed up as negative. So since I was still a few days out from my period, I decided that I was just gonna wait and retest on Christmas morning. On Christmas morning, I took the test and I got 2 very much so positive pregnancy tests. One of them was from first response and the other one was the PregMate test. And it's kind of funny because I did record my reaction, but I do not seem like shocked or surprised at all because I really wasn't. I already knew I was pregnant, and getting that confirmation was the best Christmas gift that I could ask for because it eliminated a lot of my fears. It's really cool to look back on because all of my pregnancies started with such similar feelings at the very beginning. With my first, I really sensed that I was probably pregnant, but I had never been pregnant before, so I had no previous experience to base that off of. But now getting pregnant for the 3rd time, it felt like my body was screaming from the rooftops, and I just knew that I was pregnant, and the test was just confirming what I truly knew deep down. What makes this pregnancy even more special is thinking about my son becoming a big brother, and when I found out I was pregnant, all I could keep thinking about was him one day holding his future little brother or little sister. This whole experience really just reminded me of how intuitive and intelligent our bodies really are. Pregnancy is one of those things that you can feel long before science or tests can confirm it. And I think it's beautiful how intentional God designed our bodies to be and how they communicate with us so well. I know that a lot of us, especially as women, are told to doubt or dismiss the things that our bodies are telling us. But your body is always communicating with you. Whether it's shifts that you're experiencing in your energy levels, your mood, your cravings, your body is always trying to tell you something. And I have watched so many different YouTube videos and spoken with other moms who just had that sense of knowing they were pregnant before ever taking a test. And it always just amazes me how many women just say, I just knew. The more that I leaned into listening to my own body, the more confident I started to feel, and it gave me a lot of peace during that 2-week wait. Now I want to hear from you. Did you know you were pregnant before you ever took a pregnancy test, or did you have signs and symptoms that tipped you off? Make sure you share your experience in the comments. I love to hear other women's stories. Next week, I'm going to be sharing a video about all of the pregnancy symptoms that nobody has ever warned me about, and some of them may get a little bit embarrassing and TMI, but girl, we all deal with them. So if you're curious about all the things that I have dealt with since finding out that I was pregnant, make sure you stay tuned for next Monday. And also don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so that you can be notified about all the upcoming videos on my pregnancy journey. And make sure you check out one of these videos. See you next week.